Charleston Fire. How can I help you?
Yes, sir. I'm at Sofa Superstore on Highway 17. There's a huge fire on the back of the house. You need to turn that out, though. It's huge.
Sofa Superstore.
Highway 17. You need to open that side gate, man. You need to be able to get through there.
Okay, what's the address for me?
What's the address, sir? 1807 Savannah Highway.
And what's burning in the back?
It's in the back of the Sofa Superstore.
Okay.
It's like a little shed.
Okay, gotcha. I'll have somebody out there. That's fine. 1807 Savannah Highway.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
As rush hour wound down, passers-by reported black smoke curling into the sky above the store. The first fire crews arrived on the scene shortly after 7 p.m. and found a small trash fire burning along the loading dock. As firefighters ventured into the store, the blaze spread inside. Soon they were trapped in a maze-like layout of furniture as superheated air and thick smoke enveloped the main showroom. Firefighter David Griffin was manning the pumps on an engine parked outside as the fire took a turn for the worse. As his fellow firefighters struggled to escape, flames exploded through the showroom and the situation became dire.
When the front part of the building fell, the parapet wall fell to the right of the engine, I looked up and said, who's going to extinguish the fire? And I was like kind of out of my own body. I was out of reality. And I realized that, well, we have to extinguish the fire. So that was when it really hit me that something's not going well. It's not going the way that we've had it happen before. We've always been very successful. So for me, that's when it really hit me. And I didn't know that anybody was lost or missing. Because it was so chaotic on the radio as the pump operator, I wasn't really listening to the radio, unfortunately, because I was running around trying to do a lot of things. And so I didn't realize it until guys walked up to me and said, hey, we could be missing some people. And I couldn't believe it. And then we started to hear rumors of how many, and it was mind-blowing.
Firefighters raced in from all over to help, including many who were off duty at the time. Brian Brown was among them. He'd been working out at a gym when he got a call that his friend Louis Mulkey might be among the missing.
Going over the bridge, I can see the column of smoke. And you see the smoke, and you can tell it was a big one. It's normally, it was huge. And you could see it from West Ashley, James, wherever you were at, you can see it.
Fire erupted from the building as Brown arrived. He set to work helping to cut holes in the building to get more water lines inside, amid growing chaos as word spread that Mulkey was not the only one still inside.
It got to the point where I just shut down. And then at that point, we realized that there was more. 2 turned into 3, 3 turned into 5, 6, 7, 8. And at that point, it was 8, and I was like, where do you go? You're at the lowest of the lows. Because, you kind of feel responsible because you all work together, you play together, you've been through so much, and to have 9 people that you work with, it was horrible.
2 others who had arrived, Kenny Jenkins and Larry Hood, were drafted to help search for the missing among the charred rubble after the building's roof came crashing down.
I was on the right-hand side of the building. There was a hole that was cut right there. And just as I walked in the building, there were several bodies of the firefighters laying right there. As I walked in, my captain had already been in there, and he told me, he said, watch out, there's a body right there. You can't imagine. You couldn't even tell that there was somebody, but once you look at it, you see the air pack, and you see all the gear, so I think we located 3 firefighters in that general area. It was tough. Just sheer chaos. That's the only way to describe it.
No training had prepared them for the tasks they faced or the horrors that they encountered.
You didn't know who you would come across or who you were even looking for. We knew Lewis was one of them in there. You'd be crawling up underneath the debris. You're crawling over the debris and you'd come across somebody. And the only way to identify them was opening the coats because you couldn't really identify them. And see if they had their badge on or their nameplate on. You come across 1, you come across 2, and you'd hear somebody, I've got somebody over here also, I've got somebody over here also. So it was like a culture shock, just coming across, not knowing who you would find.
They pushed back their fears and grief and ignored the smoke, smell, and tight quarters as they focused on finding every last man.
If the guys who went in there initially stayed in there, until the last one was found coming out. So, like I said, you can't really prepare for that. It was almost like doing, I don't know, that you knew somebody was in there and you were just trying to help any way you could, just to try to help them.
The final death toll stood at 9 men, making the tragedy, at the time, the nation's worst loss of firefighters since 9/11. The loss left the community reeling, sparking an outpouring of grief and kindness. Then came hard questions about what had happened to cause such a loss of life. Multiple investigations uncovered building violations and other hazards that made the store a potential death trap. The fire likely had been caused by a discarded cigarette. The probes also pointed to outdated methods employed by the fire department and deficiencies in training, tactics, and equipment. The city of Charleston spent more than $8 million on a top-to-bottom overhaul that required firefighters to absorb a host of changes in the name of progress. Joe Riley, who was Charleston's mayor at the time, describes the fire as one of the saddest days in the city's long history. He remains impressed by how the fire department battled back from such a loss.
The loss that they suffered, that was felt by every member of the department. So that was heartbreaking and emotionally traumatic. And then many were there at the fire, and just it'd be like if you were in war, in a battle, and your colleague died and you didn't, and so. I can't say enough about the members of the department, because they were, the next day they were fighting fires, they were responding, they were working.
It was hard work, but many who remained felt they owed it to the men who died.
To this day, we're still constantly changing. We'll run over some stuff that might work, it might not work, but it's just honoring the guys. If you don't want to change, if you stop changing, or if you get tired of changing, then the memory of the guys is you're losing it. So that's why I don't mind doing that.
David Griffin now travels the country in his spare time, speaking about the fire and its lessons. He's been astounded by how many people around the nation know of the fire and of the fallen. At various times over the years, he's thought of leaving the fire service, but he feels it's his duty to stay and to spread the message of safety first.
I think about leaving every day. I think about not doing this anymore. I think about not speaking on it anymore. I think about just disappearing, to be honest with you, but I can't do that. I think it's not the right thing to do. I think it beats me down sometimes. When I do what I do and people don't understand why I do it. So I'm just trying to help people. And I don't think people get it, but I'll keep doing it. That's the only way I know how to keep going. I ride a fire truck because it means something to me. I can do a lot of things. I can do anything I want to do. I've been asked numerous times to do different things, but I ride a fire truck because it's the only way I feel like I'm honoring those guys. And that's why I do it.
Ann Mulkey lost her youngest son in the fire. She spent the past 10 years making sure that people remember the sacrifice he and the other firefighters made that night. On the 10th anniversary, she hopes that people will remember them this way.
Just to remember who they were, and their lives as firefighters and coaches, whatever, but they were I guess true heroes that night. They really were. Sad as it was, as hard as it is to live with every day, I don't want them to ever forget.